Hi, my name is Nicole. Welcome to my channel, Travel to Money. In this video, I am going to tell you all about my first woofing experience here on a farm in Norway. I'll tell you about what it was like arriving, working with other woofers, what our tasks have been like, how we've all been expected to help out, and help you start a list of important questions to ask your host before you venture out on your first woofing experience. If you are new here, I have created this channel to help you learn about how to travel, adventure, and have fun on the road to financial independence. I have traveled the world, paid off a house in Spain, and I'm on a creative journey to financial independence. I believe the road to financial freedom can and should be fun. I hope you'll subscribe and join me on this journey, no matter where you are starting from. A couple of months ago, I shared a video to explain that WWOOF stands for Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms, and that you can travel and receive free food and accommodation in exchange for a little bit of work. If this is your first time hearing about woofing, that video is a good place to start to get an understanding of the platform. I shared that I would be heading to Norway for my first 3-week woofing adventure, and that is exactly where I am today. I am filming this video sitting on the farm along a fjord in Norway, on the deck that is just outside my bedroom, with the most incredible view. I have learned a lot about what to expect, what not to expect, and I think I can arm you with some really good questions to ask your host before you begin your first woofing adventure. When my friend and I read the listing for this farm, we were all in. The view was incredible, and it said the woman running the farm had puppies. Additionally, there were really good reviews, which made us feel more comfortable. There was a decent amount of information, but when we set off, there were still a lot of question marks about what we should be expecting. For example, we didn't know if we would be the only woofers on the farm with her, or if she would have several others. We didn't know if we would have our own rooms, share a room, or if we would be staying in co-ed bunks with a bunch of other woofers. On her profile, it said that she hosts up to 10 woofers at a time. The day before our arrival, we sent her a final message about our travel itinerary. She told us to go to the coffee shop in town once we arrived and to be patient because she would be coming down the mountain. We didn't know what that meant, but we understood the assignment. After a plane ride from Oslo and then 2 bus rides to the small town of Sandana, we arrived at the little bus stop, went to the cafe as instructed, and had a coffee, sandwiches, and soup. A couple of hours later, in walked Astrid, our host, full of smiles and stories, introducing herself and telling us a bit about her farm. She then drove us along the fjord, the 20 beautiful kilometers to her property. Another woofer was there to greet us, and Astrid asked him to give us a tour. There is the main goat barn that had long ago been converted into a living space. It is huge, with a massive living and dining room on one side of the barn, and then a house on the other dubbed the woofer house. In between are tool rooms and a garage sort of area. We walked the property, which included an additional 2 small houses, a greenhouse, and Astrid's house, which is where my friend and I would be staying. We really lucked out in this situation, having rooms with a view. We settled in and then headed up to dinner, where we were surprised to meet the 14 other woofers. The other woofers were from all over, including France, Czech Republic, Australia, Switzerland, Belgium, and the United States. Almost all of them were between the ages of 19 and 21, so we definitely stood out. I'm around the age of their parents. Together we ate the most delicious meal. The reviews we read were right. Astrid is an amazing cook. We had a wonderful time getting to know everyone and hearing more stories from Astrid. At 78 years old, she is full of energy, manages to run this farm and feed all of these woofers every day. We have been truly inspired by Astrid and want to tell more of her story, which I will do in another video. We were told to arrive at the barn the next morning for breakfast at 8:30 and that the assignments for the day would be discussed then. When we arrived the next morning, porridge, or oatmeal as we know it in the US, and toast were served at the table with plenty of jams, preserves, butter, and cinnamon sugar to add. Many of the jams and preserves were homemade from fruits grown on the farm. We found out that this should be expected every day for breakfast. We learned that some woofers would bring their own little food preferences. A few brought their own spreads like Nutella, and others had fruits or chocolate snacks. Astrid doesn't waste anything, and any morning where there was leftover porridge, she would turn it into waffles, which quickly became my favorite. You add eggs, baking powder, and sugar. These might be the best waffles I've ever had. Topped with a little Nutella, and it's enough to make me happy all day. At the end of breakfast, assignments were discussed. My friend and I were assigned to help in the garden for the day. Astrid has 8 grandchildren and has built and named a garden for each one of them on her farm. She gave us a tour of some of the gardens and explained which weeds to pull and which plants she wanted to keep. On an organic farm, you can't use weed killer, so all weeding must be done by hand. And the weeds are everywhere. As it turns out, weeding is pretty relaxing and rewarding. There's nothing like the sound of a whole root that's being pulled up out of the ground. After a few days, I figured out a good pattern. I like to listen to a podcast with my headphones and could easily go on for hours. There were a couple of days where we weeded in the rain, and that was a little less desirable, but not awful. On super rainy days, there was indoor work available for us. We decided to take on the project of reorganizing the tool room. When you have woofers coming for an entire summer, people move things around, and it's easy for areas like tool rooms to become unorganized. After a couple of days, we had it in order, and it felt really satisfying to look back at our work. The expectation on this farm is that each woofer works for 25 hours per week, generally 5 hours per day, Monday to Friday. However, the weather turned out to be the guidepost for days off. If there was going to be a beautiful sunny day, many woofers would opt to go hiking for that day and then work on one of the weekend days. Because everyone had a different schedule, every day or so we'd be saying goodbye to someone and hello to someone new, changing the group dynamic frequently. Some of the other projects that woofers completed while we were here included painting the interior of the greenhouse, installing a new ceiling in a bathroom, and chopping wood for the living room stove. In addition to the work hours, everyone would rotate, helping to set the table and wash dishes for meals. Even though we were only working 5 hours per day, we were pretty busy from breakfast until around 4 or 5 p.m. Dinner was often late, around 9 or 10 p.m., so after work we would have time for a nap, a walk, or a hike. There was certainly plenty of time to enjoy and have fun. Our group would play volleyball, ping pong, go on hikes, play chess, work on puzzles, and watch movies together. During time off, my friend and I would often visit the small city of Sandana, go foraging for mushrooms and berries, or go for walks or short hikes. Lunch and dinner each day were always delicious meals prepared by Astrid. We had hearty soups, casseroles, lasagnas, and more. One evening, we were extended an invitation for a dinner at a local and private restaurant owned and operated by Astrid's friends, who are the chef and maitre d', who also happen to be renowned opera singers. They started a business that includes this charming restaurant on the fjord, 6 Airbnb suites that sit just below it, and also have a beautifully renovated barn that they have curated very creatively, where they do weddings, special events, and even a 6-course dinner with operatic performances that cost around €300 per person. Our time here has been really wonderful, and I feel like I now know questions to ask my next woofing host so that I'm mentally more prepared for what to expect. We asked some of the other woofers who have gone to other farms, and they gave us helpful tips as well. One person told us that at a farm they went to, every meal they were served was bread and peanut butter, which seems quite in contrast to the wonderful meals we were served on this farm. I think it would be smart to ask a host for an understanding of what to expect for the meals. On our first trip into town, we picked up quite a bit of chocolate snacks. Many of the meals here included dessert, often made with fruits from the farm. But I'm a chocolate lover, so having some chocolate snacks in my room was nice. Another question to ask your host would be how many other woofers to expect while you are there, and what the sleeping arrangements are like. Some hosts may already provide this detailed information in the listing, but it wouldn't hurt to ask, especially if it would determine if this is the right farm for you. You may also want to ask about laundry facilities. We have access to a washer, but when it rains for several days, it may take 2 to 4 days for clothes to dry, so it's good to be prepared with enough clothing and the right type. I am a coffee drinker, and I felt pretty confident that they would have coffee, and I was right. But I read in another profile one host who doesn't like for people to have coffee daily. I don't know why, but that's a deal breaker for me, so asking if coffee is available is important. In summary, my top questions would be about food details, laundry, amount of woofers, and the sleeping arrangements. Having those questions answered would not have changed my decision to visit this farm, but if someone told me that they only served peanut butter and bread, I might have opted for a different location. I think having those questions answered would simply have made me more prepared for what I would be experiencing. Also, don't forget to bring some of your favorite snacks. It's always good to have a little backup. Now that I've told you about the basics of life here, I look forward to sharing more in another video about our host Astrid and her amazing life on this farm. I'll ask her about what it's like to host and what the pros and cons have been for her. She not only accepts woofers, but also people who apply through Workaway. Anyhow, if you have enjoyed this video, I hope you'll like it and subscribe to join me every Sunday where travel and adventure build financial freedom. I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.